just
we don't know until
we don't know until the very end because I pull it out of the thing right then and there and I hand it to you and I'm going, here
surprise,
you go. Here you go, surprise, Merry Christmas.
Okay.
So, welcome everyone to the Semi-Bookish podcast because it is now 2:00, so we're ready to start. Yay!
Happy Halloween! It's Halloween when we're recording it.
Spoopy time!
It won't be when you're listening to it.
No, but we're recording on spoopy time, so therefore, we are full blown, ready to go. I'm typing at the same time I say this, so my brain is trying to say words and think. But today we have something a little bit more special. So we are missing Tony, aka the Mouth from the South, aka Tony. We're missing Tony. Oh, this is sad. Everyone cry in the audience. Anyways, but today, instead, we have a very special guest. We have Liz, who is our bilingual library assistant and outreach programming human. Yay! And Liz is here to help talk to us about the topic today because I decided that Liz would be great to talk about things today. Anyways.
Hola, amigos.
Hello! So, the first thing we do, and Liz has already been slightly explained to this because I was explaining it to her earlier, we're going to talk about what we are reading / playing / watching / whatever you want. So, Grant, for an example for this,
I knew you would choose me.
I always do. Anyways, please tell us what you are playing, reading, watching.
Okay,
That's not in relation to your pick in a couple weeks. Because we're doing your episode soon.
Oh yeah, 2 months, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Surprise!
I don't want to be 28 years old. Never mind. Alright, so...
I thought you were older than me!
Wait, no. I'm going to be 29. It doesn't matter.
I'm like, hello?
At a certain
That's
point, it
how
just...
old I am.
At a certain point, it doesn't matter.
Anyways,
So.
Lord Ish.
Yes.
Please tell me what you're doing.
Okay, I am reading The Great Mortality by John Kelly. It is honestly, I could probably talk about it in the context of today's episode because it's a nonfiction book. But in fact, I think I will. So I'll just say that it's a history of the Black Plague.
Like the bubonic plague?
The bubonic plague.
Does it talk about Povalia?
Bovalia?
Povalia.
Povalia? Not yet.
It's an island in Italy that is considered cursed / haunted / however you want to say, because it is an island in which they would sequester away / quarantine the people who were sick with the bubonic plague.
Mm-hmm.
And quite literally, half of the island is just made out of human ash.
Wow.
Because they would cremate the humans so, nobody could happen. Nobody else would get the bubonic plague because they didn't realize, if they were just, not getting eaten by the rats / practice basic hygiene, they wouldn't get sick, right? No, we're just going to sequester everyone away on an island off the coast and, it's now haunted.
Yeah, no, they haven't mentioned the island yet. Fun story. My brother went on a vacation to the Grand Canyon one time, and there was a bunch of signs saying that the squirrels there have the bubonic plague, and it's true. So they say don't feed the squirrels.
Wow.
You'll literally catch the plague. So, hooray!
Do we even have a cure for the bubonic plague?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Now I have to look it up.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they have the literal...
It can be treated with the antibiotics.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can actually be
get
cured
treatment,
by the bubonic plague, everyone.
You will not die.
Hooray
Yes,
for,
essentially.
Modern medicine.
Modern medicine, yes.
So that's what you're reading?
That's what I'm reading, and I would like to plug Killers of the Flower Moon, the new Scorsese movie that came out. I just watched that in theaters a few days ago. It is incredible. Watch
Scorsese. Martin Scorsese?
Marty Scorsese. Old Marty. You know.
You know Marty.
Everybody knows
Everybody knows Marty.
No, it's based on a true story. It's horrifying. But
you mean the director of Kontarov?
Of what? Oh, you Tumblr people. Honestly, I would watch that movie, but
he's actually seen the memes about it. He's aware of it, and he thinks it's hilarious.
Nice.
For so there's a joke about a film called Goncharov by Martin Scorsese. And it was a whole entire thing where, like, the 1973 film, but Goncharov, and it has a whole, like, plot and everything that got made up online. And we somehow convinced people that it was real. And so everyone thought it was real for the longest time. And then Martin Scorsese finally finds out about it. He's like, this is hilarious.
Wow.
So, there's that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Liz, welcome to the podcast. What
Thank
are you reading?
I'm reading Una pieza más de Reyes Martínez, an extra piece by Reyes Martínez.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a Spanish book. This writer from Spain wrote this book, and he likes to write thrillers. And basically, like, to the part that I am reading so far, they found the cadaver of a young man in an old abandoned factory in the center of Madrid. And he has a scar on his abdomen. Well, when the police and the investigators arrived to the scene, they said, okay, let's take the body that it's in bed shape, that has already been attacked by rats around the area, and it's been raining for many days. So they are not able to get, like, many details about, like, the cadaver, but once they bring him to do an autopsy, they realize that he already had one done.
Oh, is this the one that, like, you showed me
At the
with
same
the picture?
time, the
Okay.
coroner, like, it's like telling his assistant, okay, you're gonna be taking notes, and I'm gonna describe, like, what I've been finding on the body. So he starts with, like, 25-year-old man, athletic, he keeps in good shape. You can see how he was fighting for his life. Like, there's, like, black fabric under his nails. You can tell that he smoked, like, good teeth, but, like, I can see traces of nicotine. And that's when he's like, wait, the incision here is in a white form. That means he already had an autopsy. The phone rings, and she goes to grab the phone and says, boss, they are calling because they have a cadaver that they just found somewhere else. And it appears that this other body has an autopsy. And he's like, well, you're confused. Let me get to the phone. I think that they are telling you about this body that we have here.
So is there a
And
second
she's
body?
like, no, they said it's another body. And when she's trying to describe that, she faints.
Oh, jeez.
Yes. So apparently they are dealing with, like, two different bodies that might make it seem they have a serial killer, but they cannot tell yet. So that's what I'm reading.
So this is like an episode of Criminal Minds.
Something
This
like
is
that.
some
Yeah,
episode
something
of
like that.
Criminal
Like, you're like,
Minds.
is it the same body? No, like, no. Different one.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
Anyways, hi everyone. I'm Erin. We all know who I am. I'm Supreme Overlord of all / your MC / host / person actually doing the recording of this whole entire thing. I'm reading. I just finished. So I finished. I have to mention what I finished. I finished My Sister the Serial Killer. Like
Yes.
last week. All right. Let me just. The storyline is very interesting, and the storyline is basically like there's this girl named Corride. She works at a hospital. Her sister, however, keeps killing her boyfriends to no note of if it's an accident or if it's not an accident. She's not really sure. However, this last go around, like, she's realized, oh, my sister might be a serial killer. Crap.
I think after the third boyfriend.
No, yes,
you can-
pretty much.
okay.
And then meanwhile, Corride has a crush on this doctor at the hospital, and then the doctor sees the sister, Ayula, who's the serial killer, by the way, and he goes, oh, she's hot. Can I get your sister's number? And it leads to this whole entire thing where you're kind of going back and forth in between, like, their past and their present, where they're talking about, like, why Ayula and Korede are the way that they are, / like how they grew up. Also some really crazy stuff about their dad. But that's besides the point. To the present, where Korede is trying to kind of balance the world, like balance everything that's going on with working at the hospital, trying to deal with Tade, who's the guy she has a crush on, dating her sister, and him just basically like going, hey, would she like this? Would your sister like this? And I think I would just be like the most annoyed if like the doctor wouldn't try to figure it out himself. But whatever, fine. And then the sister just kind of going off and doing things, like randomly taking some like businessman on a trip and then coming back, oh yeah, he died of food poisoning. Like, meanwhile in the middle of that. But anyways.
Well, it's interesting to see like how difference in other countries, like for instance, like this happened to be placed in Nigeria, and Korede was advised when Ajula was born, like, well, you're the older sister, so you have to be like a mother figure to your sister. So she feels like there's an obligation to cover for her sister and help get rid of the bodies and clean the crime scenes, because she's a nurse, and one of her coping mechanisms is after she's been affected with like another death.
Yeah, pretty much.
She might have OCD, and then she cleans everything to the point that she doesn't leave any evidence behind.
It's kind of a weird book, but it's
No, it sounds
good.
But it's good.
It's not. Anyway, so right now I'm reading a book called A Soul to Keep. It's some random romance. It's about a girl named Rhea who is like known as like the harbinger of bad omens because demons ate her family. And so she's shunned by everyone, and the only way she's basically going to get out of this village is either she gets thrown in the prison cells for being a bad omen, or this demon that comes to the village, you have to offer up a sacrifice for him, a bride basically for him to take, so you get protected for the next few years. And so her options are either being offered up as the sacrifice or get thrown in a prison cell. You can guess which one she picked. And so
Prison.
now
I'll go with prison.
there's this demon named Orpheus who is like, well, I guess I'll just take this human. And so, because he just wants companionship, and so he's pretty much like taking her away. And so like there's this whole entire, she doesn't really want to be there. She's thinking of this as a way out, and she's going to randomly run away at some point, and that's like kind of like her idea. Is that actually going to happen? I have absolutely no idea, because I'm only on page 40 and there's 537 pages, so maybe. Meanwhile, I'm also playing a game called Old World, which is like a grand strategy game where you're playing as like Egypt, Carthage, Assyria, Babylon, Rome, Greece. There's so many other ones, but those are the primary suspects that I usually see in my game for absolutely no reason. And right now I'm currently trying to play as Rome. And the amount of times I've gotten assassinated in this game is astronomical.
I mean, it is Rome. So.
You don't understand. I was playing as Carthage for the past, 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened to my character ever. Granted, I also hated it, and I was playing the storyline. I just started playing as characters that I made by myself, and I made this guy so angry that he decided to tell me the Lannisters send their regards as he attacked me. And then my son is now, the heir, and he was 8.
I assume that was a Game of Thrones reference.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Except it was, Nobia sends his regards, and I'm, sitting here going, you did not just Game of Thrones reference me. Get out of here. I don't like that. Why did you do that? And then I had to start over, because, I really was enjoying my character, and I want them to die a normal long death, or at least...
That makes sense.
Or at least I wanted to see if my character... Because my character, So, Rome was found by Remus and Romulus or something, or, that's, the story, how it goes, is that's who founded. Well, my character was married to Remus of Rome, and I was like, hello, this is hilariously awesome. And he fell in love with my character before we got married, by the way, which I was very surprised by, because he decided to do this all by himself in a random, event, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Something's gonna happen out of it. And so I was waiting to see if they would have more kids, but they only had the one, and then she died.
Oh, no.
So, that happened, I guess.
What a great story.
So, to be honest, it's funky, it's weird, and then I'm also playing a game called, I think it's Age of Wonder. And Age of Wonder is kind of like a similar grand strategy game, except it's more D&D styled. So you have your elves, halflings, orcs, dwarves, humans, and you can create lizard people, and you can create like your own like colony. And basically you have to have the most like treaties / like best prospering country or kingdom after a certain amount of turns, not terms. I'm playing as semesters in the other game, so I'm like, I finished the term. No, I didn't. But anyways, speaking of fantasy / things that might end up in a nonfiction book, we're going to talk about nonfiction today.
Hey.
So we're basically talking about like our favorite topics that we like to read, and then also the value of information and all of that kind of stuff. So if anybody, like, what are nonfiction books meant to really like teach us?
Well, I think self-help.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from someone that has read the DSM 5 and 4 manual just for fun. And did some testing on myself, like, about my mental health and diagnose myself and things like that. Just for fun.
What would you guys think constitutes as a good nonfiction book? Just gonna throw that out there.
I mean, it's such a wide...
I mean, I know nonfiction itself is a wide genre, but if, like, you're reading nonfiction, what constitutes to you as a good nonfiction book?
I guess it balances being informative while telling a compelling story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that'd be my main criteria.
Do you have anything other specific to you?
To me?
Yeah.
I mean...
Because, generally, like, that's a good thing, but, like, do you have anything specific
Yeah.
to you as to what makes you think that it's a good nonfiction book?
I'm
throwing out the really harsh questions.
Oops,
I mean, my bad.
I mean, I guess if it's a subject that interests me personally, which could be many things.
What subjects interest you?
What subject interests me?
Mm-hmm.
I like music. I like catastrophes. Hence the book I'm
That's
reading
the
right
book
now.
you're reading right now.
I like history of the arts. I like philosophy. I don't know. I like a...
You like a big wide variety.
Yeah, as long if it matches those, if it hits those 3 boxes, I'm interested in the material. It tells a good story, and I actually learned something from it. I'd say it succeeded as a nonfiction book.
Liz, what do you think makes a good nonfiction book?
Well, I'm thinking about one by Tenoch Huerta, Orgullo Prieto, where he talks about discrimination. Like, how in Mexico we tend to say, like, we do not discriminate. And we're not racist, but we're classist, meaning that you base everything like on the socioeconomic status that somebody might belong to. Like when I was like reading the book, I realized myself that I was making some of the mistakes of being racist. Not because I wanted to, but it's just the way that you have been raised in many different aspects. For instance, I will throw one. When I went to Chicago, I went to Zara's store because I love Zara. And I purchased some items, and it says, like, in the book, like, he's describing, sometimes you may want to try to pass by looking sort of white. So you go to some stores where some white people will be, like, buying silly brands to try to blend. Not intentionally, but...
You're just trying to, like blend and unintentionally assimilate in there.
Assimilate some ideas or, like, ways of living.
What's your favorite topics to read about?
Everything with psychology. Self-help, meditation, how to improve yourself. Like, I was just describing, like, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I thought it was, like, an amazing book. A meditation book that unfortunately has not been translated, but I have talked to people here at the library about it, and they are waiting for the translation.
Oh, so there's like
The Divine Meditation Book.
Okay.
Yes, by Lexi. Yes.
Do you meditate yourself?
I do. I mean, I try because, like, after my yoga session, I try to meditate a little bit, like, in the mornings, but my brain is always going in many different directions, and it's hard for me to shut down my brain and not think about something.
Is your brain always like at like, you know, like how you have like 0 to 100? Is your brain just like always at 100? It's just going like.
It's always at 100, and I might be here, but my brain is also thinking about something else at the same time. Like I need to do this. Like tomorrow's a deadline for this. We have this community event. Like you name it.
Okay, I mean I particularly like history things. Granted, I'm very insanely on art history, and so we did an episode. I think we were just talking about art, video game art in general. Like, video, because we were talking about video games in the episode.
It very quickly turned into a debate.
Philosophical debate about art history and if video games were an art form, and that's the kind of, like, nonfiction that I live for. / I do like, and this is just because I'm perpetually a child in my brain, and I like to kick over my pop bottles at the same time. But, like, I like to look at, like, cookbooks or craft books. Like, granted, I might not actually ever, like, make them, but I like to look at them because I like to look at the pictures. I like to look at what goes into them. One of my favorite books, and I don't remember the title of it off the top of my head, so... Anyways, I took culinary chemistry in college, and we had this giant book, and it was like a thick, I can't describe this book to you, but it was a thick book. I might be able to find it if I looked around on my Amazon, like, order lists or whatever that I ordered, but it was so long ago, like, I'm not going to remember it. But it was a giant, thick book, and in this book was, like, the chemical compositions of, like, random food and, like, recipes and, like, stuff like that in the middle of it, and I was just like, this is interesting. Why have I never thought of this before?
Is there one that you might remember up until today? Because you are like, wow.
There was one section where we talked about coffee beans, and, yeah, like, coffee beans and, like...
Cheers!
Like, getting the flavor out of coffee beans, like, the longer you leave it to steep, I think it was, like, the more bitter it is. And there's, like, a whole bunch of, like, time, like, experiments that they did so you could see that. We also, in that class, watched a lot of Good Eats. The Anton Brown, I think it's Anton Brown. I don't remember what it is, but I think it's Good Eats. And it was a show, and he did a lot of food science. And we would take his recipes, and we would go make them. And then we would turn around, and every single group had to take a random piece. Either they substituted for something else, or they took an ingredient out of the recipe so we could all make it and then eat it and then see the difference in between each thing. So, like, we did cookies, and so one group had just a little bit too much sugar. One group did, like, this specific task with when they made the cookies. One group used this kind of flour instead of another kind of flour, and so you could see, like, the really thin cookies that just kind of, like, break in half really easily, or those really gooey ones when you pull them apart, just kind of like when you're pulling it apart and stuff like that. However, I'm also a big, like, art history person. I have, like, so many random art history books in my Kindle, like, library. It's kind of ridiculous. I have textbooks. Like, I read textbooks for fun. And it's insane. Like,
Do you have any particular, like, art movements that you like reading about? Or?
So, personally, I really like Renaissance, but I also like, something else that I also really liked was it's conceptual art. This is, think like Yoko Ono. Mm-hmm. Like, this is her art style movement. It's conceptualism. To be honest, I also hated this movement at first because it's one of those movements where it's like you don't get it unless, like...
A lot of people dismiss it offhand.
Yeah, it gets dismissed really easily because it's one of those where, like, if you're not paying attention to the context of what's happening in history, you're not going to understand the concept of what's going on in the art movement, which I think is one of the more interesting parts about art history as a whole. Like, with Renaissance art, like, a lot of things can be determined by random things that happened in history, and that's how we determine, like, the early Renaissance between the high Renaissance and then the late Renaissance. Like, there's 3 different sections because the period is so long, and then you have historical things that happen that differentiate each section. And so that's what I really like, and that's what I kind of look for in art history books, is if they are talking about movements or art styles or people, I want them to also connect it to history at the same time, so you can see like maybe like either in like timeline format or something else that they connect to. Like, you see like, oh, so the reason that like in Europe in like World War II, the reason that like Russia, like, this is like end of World War II, so the reason why we go so modern with our art movements is because Russia, who we started doing Cold War with, started doing more kitschy style art instead, which is the more like propaganda, like World War poster style art instead. And so you see a giant break off in the art styles, and that's why we get our super ultra modern conceptualist art versus that. And so it's really interesting. I mean, do you think all nonfiction books are meant to teach us something?
Not necessarily.
I'm just throwing out questions.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I guess I should have mentioned true crime, because I enjoy true crime as well. And do you necessarily learn something outside of the events of this particular case? No, but it's a good story. And
I mean, yeah.
You can get insight into how people think and stuff like that.
I love reading about true crimes just because, like, as you guys already know, like, I went to criminology school with Alice, and we had to analyze so many, like, crimes that happen, and it's just something that I enjoy reading. I feel like you might learn something about it. On the Mexican serial killers book that I just read and finished reading a couple weeks ago. It describes like how some of these serial killers, it's not that they are smart and that's how they get away with the crimes. It's just like it's going to be a matter of time. They are going to leave like something behind. They are very lucky, and then they made the one mistake, and that's how the police finally finds who they are and where they are located.
You know, I think media in general has done a great disservice in portraying serial killers as like masterminds of evil. A lot of times they're very dull individuals, to put it frankly. Yeah, and you're right. Eventually they screw up.
Eventually,
and then they get caught. It's, you know.
I have this section on here that just says the value of facts.
The value of facts. What are facts?
Like, how do you decide if like a book is like good for facts or not? Like, like how do you like look at this like piece of literature, or, and I say literature in the broader sense of like the nonfiction books, like how do you look at it and go like, oh, this is factual?
I guess you have to take into account the author's various biases and the context in which, you know, that particular book was written.
Something that I like to look for, especially when I'm looking for, like, let's say if it's like, and I'll go back to art history, but like when I'm looking for the verification of like facts in a book, especially if it's nonfiction, the first thing I do before I even open the book whatsoever, open the book to read it, is I crack open the back and I look to see if, one, there's an index, and then two, if there's a bibliography in the back. A lot of times, if there's a bibliography in the back, you can go look up all of those different, like, articles or books or whatever that they were using. And I think it's more of like and this is just my personal opinion, I think it's more of a personal, like, you have to decide for yourself if you think this is factual or not. Like, me as a person, I can't decide if, like, Liz thinks that this random science book about why penguins are actually dinosaurs, is factual.
You know, I think they're onto something.
I know because they're birds, but still, like it's not up to me as like the person. Like, yes, I'm ordering things and I'm hoping that they're really factual, but like, I think it's up to you as the reader to go like, oh, look at all these things in the back. Like, I should look at those if I'm really interested in the subject to learn and if it's factual or not. However, I do think that having that bibliography in the back is what really helps me go, okay, so this might be more factual than speculation. And it's not like, there might be more information than misinformation if I can see a bibliography and I can go track down these things. But that's the academic in me talking. That might be different from everyone else.
No, I mean, it sounds like a good...
Sounds like a good point, and it's just... When I was in the medical field, I worked with this physician, and when he asked me, like, back in the day, like, to bring some information for someone regarding, like, what they had just been diagnosed with, he will always, like, ask me, like, millions of questions, like, who's going to be your source? Because he wanted a reliable source. And I was like, well, this hospital and that clinic and so on. Not just like something that I just Googled to print for a patient. But like, for instance, James Clear has a bibliography at the end of each paragraph or at the end of the page. And the difference with the Notchworth, who you might know from Wakanda Forever, for Brown Pride, he does not have bibliography, but he's describing experiences that he had lived that I relate to. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can understand why you're describing this. I feel you. So that's why I give him credit from what he wrote about or what he's describing.
Do you think that... So would nonfiction be something that you would... Like, let's say there's no more fiction books. Would you actually sit down and read nonfiction books if you were?
Most of the books I read are nonfiction because they are like self-help books.
Yes.
Like Liz mostly reads nonfiction books. You read mostly like a weird like variety.
I go from obsession to obsession, and that's just how it works.
You have so many hyperfixations. It's kind of ridiculous at this point. Like, Grant comes in one day and he's like, I'm reading this, and it's like a random speculative fiction novel. And then the next day we walk in and he's reading the philosophy of Jung, and I'm like whiplashed because like he was reading like, I don't know, like he could be reading like flowers.
Let me just describe Grant. We work at a library and we read books, but we cannot read Grant's reading choices. Because he always surprises like everyone with, oh, what are you reading today? Like,
pretty much. Like, do you think, so if an author was writing a nonfiction book specifically for you, how would they get your attention?
No, that's a good question.
I'm asking the fun questions today.
Hey.
I came up with all of these on the spot. What's up, my friends?
Tune in. Aaron asks the hard-hitting questions. I don't know.
I have some ideas.
Yeah, sure.
I think that the person will need to write something of my interest. If it's something that I like, I'm gonna be more drawn to read the book. It has to be something of interest of like self-help, like something with mental health, something on how to improve the communities. I don't know.
So what Liz is saying is she hides anywhere in the 150s in the psychology section, or she hides in the 300s, which is social science.
Pretty much, because I'm always fighting for social justice. So if you don't see me like holding like the DSM-5 manual, like I might have a serial killer's book or something like Cesar Chavez, like you never know. Like,
all right, Grant, if you've thought of something.
No, I mean I agree. It should interest me. As far as the actual writing goes, it needs to be compelling. Like, I don't want it to just be a recitation of facts, you know. I don't know, Nietzsche's a great writer. I'm kind of working my way through a anthology of his stuff right now. And he's extremely good at getting his ideas across, but also making it, in either whether they're aphorisms or essays or whatever, it's very, very compelling and striking. And I think you can do that with really any topic. So I think the writing itself would need to stand out.
I think for me, I want a story. Like, yes, I want the bibliography in the back of the book if it's something that's informative, or if it's like art history, I want the bibliography in the back of the book. If you don't have a bibliography in the back of your book, get one. Thanks. Anyway.
So who would you choose, like, if they were to tell you, like, you could have anyone in the world that it's alive, or if you could have someone from the past that is no longer alive, if they could write a book for you?
If they could write a book for me? What's his name? Oh my gosh.
Do you have any ideas, friend, of who you will choose to write a book?
Write a book for me. I mean, I'm kind of dressed up as one right now, Hunter S. Thompson, because it's Halloween. I should have brought him up. He's a very, very good example of turning actual events into a great story. Whether or not it's embellished, to a great degree or not. I don't let that get in the way. In that, even in that, there's truth. So I'd say maybe him. I don't know what topic he would cover, but just anything.
Clement Greenberg, which everyone's like, huh? Clement Greenberg, who was an essayist / art critic, and he is one of the more influential art critics / person who wrote about art history in, like, modern art, mid-20th century. He died in, 94, but, from, the 1920s all the way up to, then, he was one of, the art critics. He wrote some of, the best things about art history and theory of art and things like that. So, I think I would have, if I could bring him back and have him write me something, I would want him to write me something, because, I think, especially now, with the evolution of art from, obviously, 1994 when he died to today, art has changed, or not particularly, but, it's changed enough that, I feel like he might have some more things to say, especially if he got to view, the expansion and the evolution. I feel like that would be really interesting. Liz, do you have one?
Yes, it's hard to choose just one.
I had to think of him for a minute.
But I will go with Jorge Ramos. Jorge Ramos is a Mexican-American journalist and writer, and he's been regarded as the best-known Spanish-language news anchor in the U.S. And he has, a TV show, he writes for newspapers. He has written so many books. He's an activist, and his career is just amazing. So I always look up at him wow, he's done so much. Especially for the ones who do not have a voice, or nobody hears what they are saying, or they try to pretend that they do not exist. So he's been the voice of many minority groups in the U.S.
So, we were talking about, what makes us want to read a nonfiction book. What's your icks? What would make you put a nonfiction book down?
Put a nonfiction book down?
Mm-hmm. Besides me being bored with it, because that is something that I talk about constantly. I'm I get bored, put it down. But, what are your icks when it comes to a nonfiction book? Icks being, stuff your pet peeves, things that would make you probably want to put it down for a bit and not actually want to read it anymore.
Yes, I have no patience for electioneer, cash grab, political biographies.
I think we all can.
No, you can quote me. There's no
quote Grant.
There's no bigger waste of paper than those. I just.
Do you think they all sound the same?
From what I've read.
Have you read a lot of them?
No, but I think I've read all I need to, because it's obviously written with the intention of getting votes, and as someone who doesn't trust any politician,
It's like, wow, you could just put it up on your website. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I understand it that way.
Yeah, no, I just don't, it's not for me.
This.
For me, I will go with Grant's idea of like something about like involving someone from a political campaign, but also like a famous artist or so. Like, I'm sorry for all the ones that are listening and will be like, what? But I don't have no desire of reading about Britney Spears.
I mean, I also think I'm like not a big biography person, and that's just because like, so if it's a biography of the person after they passed away, like that is completely different. Like, I will read one of those, maybe a couple of those, especially just to get a good story / overview of the life. I feel like that's similar to like a true crime kind of thing. But if the person's alive at the moment, I kind of see it similarly to the political
You kind of look at it with suspicion a little
like
bit.
political cash grab book over there where they like, and y'all know which ones I'm talking about. It's the ones in like either the 362s or no, not 362s, 326. I don't know which number it is. There's a certain number, I know exactly which one it is, but I can't tell you what it is right now. Those, and in the 977.43, no, something, 973s, I don't know.
The back wall.
The back wall. It's not the back wall anymore. We've weeded a lot of them.
Outside.
But like those, like I just see them akin to each other because like if I have like 5 like memoirs from like the same like artist or whatever, like I'm just sitting here going, you really just had a lot of time and you just really wanted to, you know, do something. Like, okay, but like I get bored with those. And so, fun fact, when you're reading them, the idea, they don't last on the shelf very long. They're usually about like 2 to 5 years. Because it's usually just kind of a quick, like...
For biographies?
For biographies, yeah.
Wow, we have the one by Ricky, like for Ricky Martin that it's been like on the Spanish section for like years.
No, so
Yes.
for those who don't know, we're currently in a big weed of our nonfiction section. And the reason being is because we have a lot... And we're trying to make space for new books that will be more fun to read for people in the future, that are more culturally relevant and or don't have misinformation in them.
We only have so much space, people.
Yeah, when we read, we only have a finite space, and so sometimes your favorite books might not be on the shelf anymore, but that's because they might not be checked out, or they might not be in the greatest condition.
However, I had listened when the book I'm Glad My Mom Died by Janet McCurdy. I listened to the audiobook. It was very interesting, and what I like about it is that she did her own voice for the book.
Yes.
And another biography this one I actually read because I was very interested about this activist, was the one by Ernesto Guevara, known by El Che Guevara from Argentina, because I wanted to know, like, why did people follow him? What was so interesting about this guy that he moved groups of people to do what he wanted?
I just figured out something else I like to read about. I like to read about cults.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that one. I like to read about... Well, it's more of like a social science thing, because I think they're either in the 200... Dependent on what kind of cult it is, by the way, everyone. Dependent on what type of cult it is, you're either in the 200s, because sometimes it's a religious cult. And then sometimes you're in the 300s, because it's not a religious cult. More often than not, it's in the 200s. Trust me on this. It's hiding somewhere in that area. And I like reading about those because I like reading about, like, some of that social, like, human condition. One of the classes I took in college was anthropology. Loved that class. It was very interesting into, like, a human brain, kind of like, this is why we act the way we do, or this is why we think the way we think, like, those kind of things. And so... reading about cults or looking at those kind of things shows me, like, all the different little, like, this is why they thought the way they did. This is why they did what they did. Like, this is how they got caught. Or are they still around? And if so, where are they? And what are they doing? Like, those kind of things are interesting. However, I usually default to video essays when I look at cult things, because especially if it's more current.
There are some good.
There are some really good video essays on those kind of things. So, you know.
Do you have a favorite cult? a pet, a pet cult, we'll call it?
No.
Okay.
There was this one, and it was really interesting, where they basically had this lady, and she was like the mom. She wasn't actually the mom, but like she was basically like seen as like God reborn, like as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up, she died, and they ended up like basically like embalming her and mummifying
that
her.
happened like last year, didn't it?
It was a few
like
years
a
ago.
few years ago.
And they put gems in her eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and they literally drove around the country with her like body,
Mm-hmm.
like to go to their new place, and then they got caught by the cops. And they opened up the trunk and she's just in there. And I was like, oh my god, they're still around. It was just like really one of those things that I was not expecting,
Mm-hmm.
like whatsoever. Sorry, I'm going to pick a few of these because I know that Liz has never done these before, and I feel like she should do a couple. That one Liz won't care about. Liz won't even know who that is. So, for Liz, who hasn't done a smack yet, I'm just going to do some would you rathers because I feel like those would fit with Liz more than if I did the fight to the death episode. Because I feel like that's going to fit her more. Though this would be a very funny and entertaining fight right now.
I'm curious, but I'll have to wait.
You'll have
it's
to
like,
wait.
now what?
Alright, so first things first. So we do this at the end of the episode. I mean, because I consider kind of like, are we good? Are we good? Are we good?
I guess so.
We have 15 minutes, so that's why I'm like, let's do some funny ones in the meanwhile, right?
In the meanwhile, while you're like looking for the papers,
Yeah.
announcement to our former coworker Andy, I cannot wait for the next book of Agustina Bastorica, which we already placed the order, and you will have to wait for the translation because of course it's going to be like in Spanish since it's from Argentina. But it involves like the cult of like where the women who survive go to a monastery, and then they said, oh, okay, we found a place where somebody's going to help. Not knowing it's not going to be like that, so...
Alright, I have a few, and I can always pull out more if we want later. So basically, I pull them out of this thing, and it's just kind of like a whole entire hodgepodge, so, you just bear with me as I... Ooh, that's a fun one. Alright, anyways. I knocked over my pop bottle again. This is the third time this episode. Alright, so the first things first. Alright, so question out loud for both of you, which, I mean, I can... So, would you rather only be allowed to mark your place by dog-earing the page, or have to make a small mark on the corner of every page you've read?
Don't do this.
no,
I
why?
hate both.
Why?
I know.
I guess I would do the dog ear only because I could feasibly like flatten it out again. Where I can't really get.
Because I know if I ask Tony this question, Tony would lose their mind. We love you, Tony.
No, I
just want to know why the pain. Why do you have to ask so painful questions to people in the library world? Like, no.
So you know that like I only pick books for the book club because that makes people suffer, right? So you know if I'm picking things out of the jar, you know I'm gonna make you suffer.
Well, I didn't suffer when I was reading your book choice.
Yeah, I know you didn't. But the last book choice, which I made Grant read too because I suggested it to him, I also made him suffer.
Which one was that?
Sparrow.
Oh, no, yeah.
I actually
love
enjoy
it.
Mexican Gothic. I thought like there was room for like another
Alright.
book, but maybe like I would just fold the corners of the book. Yeah.
Or fold the corners.
I'll say this: I'm a pacifist, but if any of you guys out there write down stuff in our books, I might have to fight you. You leave me no choice.
I left you no choice.
Oh goodness.
Alright, so, would you rather never read a book again? Or, this is for Grant specifically, I'm making him suffer, or never watch a movie again?
I feel like if I were to erase all books, it would be more of a harm to society as a whole. However, I'd probably have to keep movies. Just because that's my specialty.
So you're going to say that you're never going to read a book again?
I guess. I don't know. I'll turn on the subtitles.
Wow. I think that your professors from Siena, like, will be, like, very proud of you. Like, yes.
I know. They'd probably be surprised because I didn't go to see
You went to film school?
Wasn't it like Siena?
No,
I
it
was
was
thinking
me.
like film at school. Like
That was
I know
me.
you went to Siena, but like
Yep.
I was like, what did you?
You went to
do
film school somewhere.
Troy, Michigan.
Congrats.
That's why you choose films.
So, would you rather? And I know the answer to this one already because I know Fran, like, by the back of my hand. So, would you rather have the time to read 100 books every year or make 20 new friends?
I know the
Liz.
answer.
Liz,
I know the answer.
Liz, what's your answer? Because this is for everyone. You have to answer your own.
Read 100 books or make 20.
I'd probably go with the books only because I like having a small amount.
I could just see you just, like, having a stack, and then meanwhile, Jen knows she giant stack.
I'll go with the books as well because I only have quite a few friends. I know a lot of people from the community, but I have very, very a small circle of friends. Very small, but very loyal for many years.
All right, long chapters or short chapters? Which one do you prefer? Why?
I like long chapters.
Why?
I just like ideas being fully fleshed out.
So what would you say is your perfect size chapter book?
Oh, I mean that depends. That's depends on.
Like,
whole
how long
series
of a chapter
things.
are you talking
I
here?
don't know.
Like,
I don't
are we talking
know.
about like 34 chapters and they're all like very long, so it looks like a Brandon Sanderson giant like chonky book, or are you thinking like 30 like long chapter? It looks like a big thick James Patterson.
I'm thinking moderately sized book itself, but longer chapters.
So like maybe like 19 chapters
Yeah, I'm thinking of like
in a standard size.
just for me. I'm thinking like Faulkner or something. Like his books aren't particularly long, but the chapters themselves are long. So.
I prefer long chapters too because we just had like my sister the serial killer. and I
Those
was
chapters
like,
are the shortest thing I've ever read in my life.
It was
oh
like
my
reading
god.
a diary of like one page, and then it was like
Or half a page
The
at one point,
market.
and I'm like, hello?
she will label it like or name it like the market, and you read like a page about the market. And
I'm,
then
like,
you
pretty
flip
sure,
the
like-
page, and then it was like a page and a half, like the hospital, and
I'm pretty
It's
sure like
super
half of the chapters had like the same title at one point, and I was like, didn't I just read this? And so like I had to like go back, and I was like, no, I didn't.
I feel like the intentions was like to write it in a way that it looked like a diary of someone, like and how she was writing daily.
Like an epistolary book. Epistolary. Epistolary?
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah. Sorry, I just don't know how to say the words out loud.
I will say I read a book last year, I think, called Young God. I can't remember the author, but if it's a book where like the text itself is very sparse and poppy, I feel like some of the chapters in that book were literally a paragraph, and
Sorry, I just thought this one was funny, and I have to have
Shall
it
I
on.
be afraid?
Yes.
Oh goodness.
So you're about to look at two characters, and they fight to the death. Let's go.
Okay.
What character do you have, Grant?
I have Pete the cat.
What character do you have, Liz?
Bugs Bunny.
Okay. I mean, I already know I lose because Bugs Bunny's so crafty,
Oh, I was gonna say Bugs Bunny is older and wiser.
That's true.
Ooh.
I mean, Pete the cat. I've never read a Pete the cat book, but I know kids like him. So,
Never read
if,
Me either, but I got to see Pete the cat at the library.
yeah, he did visit here.
He did
Okay.
visit the library, and the kids loved the cat. Like, they went to the cat and hugged the cat, and I was advising the cat, like, the kids are hugging you. You need to go down.
Because
so they
that
can take
that
photos.
poor Pete the cat couldn't see.
I know, cataracts, right?
Yes, old age.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And I will say the kids love the cat. Could Pete the cat theoretically, I don't know if this is allowed, create an army of small children
to attack Bugs
Through
Bunny?
sheer force, overpower Bugs Bunny and his ingenuity.
No, because then senior citizens of the community could come with like their wheelchairs,
Because they grew up
walkers
with
and
Bugs Bunny.
canes, and like
Alright.
hit the kids and protect Bugs Bunny.
All right, this is turning to a full-scale skirmish. I don't.
The little children versus the old people.
Yeah.
When you're using medical equipment to your benefit, yes.
Who would win, 5 old women or 1 young child? I don't know, that's
Five older women because they have the experience and the
Okay.
kids don't.
okay. I guess it's up to you.
Who would win in a fight? Like 5-5-year-olds or like 3-year-old ladies?
between Pete the Cat and Bugs Bunny and their respective armies.
Just think about it, like a kid might get loose, start like the Mexican books as a reference, you know, like the Spanish books,
I mean, I
trying
want
to run all the way around and get loose. And what is the adult gonna be like? I'm just gonna wait over here because sooner or later
I
they
mean-
will come this way. Like they know.
I want to say that Bugs Bunny wins because I want to say that Bugs Bunny wins, and in the perfect world, Bugs Bunny wins because they have the old people in the wheelchairs following them. So how scary parents can be. So you have the scary parents, right? However, like I feel like dependent on the type of children that Pete the Cat will employ / like recruit into their small army. The dark horse then becomes like, who knows what type of children Pete the Cat has recruited, and you don't know if the child is like insane or not and is gonna just like run circles around the parent person.
throwing
I mean,
like cupcakes everywhere.
Yeah.
Like leaving
So you know,
frosty
Pete the Cat
behind.
doesn't discriminate. He's basically the Pied Piper of picture books. You know,
I mean,
he
Bugs
just-
Bunny is international. Like
Bugs
this
Bunny is
was like a
international, yep.
cartoon that was translated into Spanish, so we have like the force of other countries like
Okay,
fighting
yep.
for Bugs Bunny.
so I mean that could be a thing.
I can see Bugs Bunny
uh,
being a mad dictator or something.
Hilariously enough, though, I did just see Duolingo Bird in the jar at some point. And I
That would have
laughed.
been fun.
Listen, if Duolingo Bird ever comes out, it's an automatic win for Duolingo
Because
Bird.
he won't stop.
Have you
until-
seen Duolingo Bird?
Yes.
I would give you homework and just say watch the TikToks.
I used to
Duolingo has a
Duolingo.
TikTok.
No, you better learn your Czechoslovakian or you better check your locks again. You know?
I did Duolingo when I wanted to learn Portuguese.
Better learn Spanish or you're gonna vanish. He has no.
So I would not vanish because I already know Spanish. Oh, that's great. Thank you for the